Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 177 with Angela Gallo. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when she explains the difference between a doula and a midwife. I also loved when she shares her biggest lessons that she's learned after giving birth to her 2 children and witnessing countless births as a doula. And I also loved when she talks about the identity death that occurs when we step into motherhood. But there is so much more wisdom and inspiration that you get in the full episode. So to listen to the full podcast and get all the info in the show notes, head on over to melissaambrosini.com/177 right now. Beautiful Angela, welcome to the show. I'm so pumped to have you here. But first, let's dive in. Can you tell us about your story and how you got to where you are today doing the wonderful work that you do in the world?
It all starts probably 5 years ago, before the birth of my daughter, when I had every intention not to have babies because I was a free roaming, traveling wild woman. I had been living between Thailand and Australia for 2 years, doing underwater videography and volunteering in some animal rescue and bartending on a beach bar and doing all the fun stuff. Bartending in, Melbourne. And towards the end of that 2 years, I met my ex-partner and, heated, wonderful little romance. And I said, well, look, I've got to go back to Canada. Do you want to tag along? He's like, yeah, let's do this. So we went to Thailand for, a last minute shindig. We had a great time, went to Canada and ended up finding out that I was pregnant right before a massive road trip that we were about to go on. Now, I had been previously told that I could not get pregnant, and I got pregnant. And then I was faced to kind of make this decision as to what I would do. This was a second pregnancy, by the way. So I had already had a previous pregnancy that was very conflicted and just a sad, stressful memory. And so all of these emotions and this situation was bubbling to the surface. What could I do? What should I do? But something in the deepest part of me said, no, you've got to do this. You're going to become a mom. And now, is the perfect time. There's never going to be a perfect time. And you've got to just trust this process. And this is where I feel everything begins for me, my second life, my rebirth. And it's with the pregnancy and the birth of my daughter, Ruby. I felt ridiculously connected to my baby. I was just lapping up the experience as a physical experience, a spiritual experience, an emotional experience, and ultimately an exercise into what the hell it meant to be a woman, because I never had that experience before then. And so as she grew stronger and, as I became more pregnant, the challenges didn't stop. And certainly a lot of things happened. But when I went on to birth her after a very, 45-hour long labor, really, intense, but massively empowering, everything that I thought that I was, everything that I thought I knew, everything that my arrogant, naive little brain believed before that moment changed with her. And so as I scooped her from, my yoni onto my chest and sobbed and wept and her eyes met mine, it was like the stars colliding. Like every single thing that has happened to me since then was then. And I'm actually about to start crying, so I should probably stop talking about that. But just meeting her and realizing that, as a young person, you live your whole life thinking that you understand things and that you're invincible and you have it all figured out and you're a rebel and, you can do what you want. But after I had her and I hired a doula, I just, was so impounded and impacted by having that doula there that I just couldn't shake this feeling that possibly this is something that I would want to explore. And so 3 months, into Ruby's new life, I could not peel myself away from doula, Googling doula, just constantly. And, this training that was happening kept popping up. And so I did the training and I definitely did not hate it whatsoever. I loved it. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is the start of something. And I need to just trust this process. Since then, I had my son, Odin. And that only compounded my obsessive passion for this work. And I went on to, add birth photography to my repertoire. I started a business program for birth professionals. And I now just launched a global training online and in person for visionary, passionate, rebel type of doulas like myself. And it's been a hell of a ride, Melissa. That's how it started for me.
For someone who's listening and is like, what the hell is a doula? Can you explain what a doula is and what their role in the whole birth process is?
It is a birth keeper of sorts. So a doula is somebody who, not just in birth or pregnancy, very much at all types of milestones, like, navigating loss, navigating death, menopause, menstruation, is a shepherd of sorts. They are the confidant, the best friend, the coach, the person who very much bridges the gaps and becomes whatever it is that that individual needs at that moment in time. And so for myself, working in pregnancy and birth and postpartum, it really is about becoming whatever that person needs during that process. As a doula, I'm focusing on everything from the womb up. And so I'm focusing on emotion, spirituality, mental health, really putting them, inspiring them, helping them to be in a place of total alignment. So the mind, the body, the soul snap dab together so that they can, not only achieve the outcome and the experience that they're dreaming of, but that they walk away from it feeling a certain way. And for me, that's the kicker. It's not promising someone a type of birth. It's helping them facilitate that type of energy and feeling so that when they walk away from it, doesn't matter what happened, it's how they felt leaving, so that they move on and they rock and roll in parenthood and they feel solid and confident and competent and do all of the things that, sane, balanced, feel good people do, which of course we know has all these massive ripple effects. So that is what a doula does. It's a myriad of things, but that's it in a nutshell.
A doula is almost like the best cheerleader that you could have. So how are they different to a midwife?
Mm-hmm. Massively different. And the thing is, as well, is when we look at, hospitals and the Ministry of Health and systems and, midwives, doesn't matter how beautiful they are. It doesn't matter how beautiful the obstetrician is. They have protocols and policies and legal restrictions and insurance restrictions that they need to abide by. And so inherently, it restricts their ability to have those relationships and inherits their ability to be honest with their clients and make recommendations based on something else that's not, for example, science. And what I love about this is that I can just come in with the experience, and the things that I know and the things that I feel and the things that I've seen and really help them to ask the right questions and, do the research. And what's most exciting for me is empowering people beyond the cliche empowering. I'm talking about empowering them to walk into a system that can sometimes be ruthless and feel like, yes, I'm a badass. I can totally do this. And that's definitely such a cool part.
So why should women consider getting a doula? Like, for someone who's listening, like, why should they even consider it?
So many reasons. So as we touched upon, right, birth as a physical experience where you are pushed to the brinks, like I said, of your, emotional, mental, physical, soulful self. The only way to be prepared for that and to be in a place where you feel confident navigating it is to, spend the time just like any other exercise, exercising your mental health and your emotional health and your spiritual health beforehand so that when you get to the birth, you're feeling in shape, quote unquote. You're feeling like your endurance and your stamina is just peaking. And that's what a doula can help you do. And that for me is what I hope to bring. It's like keeping people enthusiastic, keeping them feeling like massively pumped for what's to come, getting them to ask the questions, getting them to, do the research, getting them thinking about things they've never thought about before, having them cry and really express those fears and work through whatever fears they have. That all helps them exercise the mind, body, and soul so that when they get to birth, they feel like they are again in shape, quote unquote, in order to handle it and manage it and enjoy it. That's what a doula does. And that's why I believe people should have a doula.
Tell us about some of the lessons that you've learned that maybe you wished someone would have told you before you went into pregnancy and birth.
Sure, sure. I wish that more conversation would be had about what would happen if we harnessed conception and birth and parenthood as a, again, transcending, transformative experience that takes us closer to our humanity than we've ever been. Because I feel like the ripples of that would just be ginormous, and it would affect the ways we see death and everything else, the ways we connect to each other, our relationships. So that's a massive one. Secondly, I wish that somebody would have told me that all of the books you're reading are bullshit. What to expect when you're expecting, and, reading about your baby being the size of an avocado, and all of the things that we are consumed with, like how much is my baby weighing, and is, my body too small, and all of the conversations that distract us from leaning into our body and embodying what it means to birth, and, utilizing birth as a somatic practice. I wish that stuff would be more obvious, because I feel like unless you're somebody who is, a part of this community, finding that information is actually quite difficult. And, overall birth culture is just very dramatic, and it's like the birth is a general negative experience. And lastly, I also, and this is probably something that you and I just can't help, there's nothing that I can tell a first time parent about how hard and how rewarding and how extreme birth and parenting is, because until you live it yourself, you just don't know. So, it's not to take away from the fact that I wish someone would have told me that it was this wild, but I wish that there were more real conversations happening about the realities of motherhood and parenthood. I wish that we weren't so distracted about, discussing how terrible birth is, and making room for more conversations that would help us feel connected and supported as we deal with the insanity that is parenthood.
I've seen this a lot with a lot of my friends and spoken to a lot of women that when they first become pregnant, there is an element of a death of the identity. So, how do you, as a doula, support that process of that death of that identity for the mother to be?
Great question. My philosophy towards this is that rebirth, right? That rebirth and that phoenix rising from the ashes, that can only happen when the death takes place. And as humans, we are in a constant ebb and flow, a constant cycle of decay and death and rebirth and growth. And that is a beautiful, necessary part of the process. And my logic is that as you are reborn, and are reborn with that resilience and that wisdom and that knowledge and that experience, the good stuff happens, the best version of you happens. The kind of person that could not, simply would not exist if the other person had not died. And there's ways to move through that grief in a way that honors that beginning part of your life, while holding space for the new to come, right? That new life to begin. And so much like, there's so many beautiful visuals around online about, like, the pot with all of the cracks, and the crafter has to make the decision whether they keep repairing the cracks. But if they do that, the integrity is compromised. So do we hold on to the pot, or do we break it and start from new? And that's my visual. It's like you're going to get to a point where you're going to you're going to need to stop resisting. You're going to need to stop holding on to what it is you thought you were, and who it is you thought you were, and surrender and buckle at the knees and come down to the floor and just let go. And in that process of letting go is the most beautiful opportunity to be, turned into something new, to be reborn, to come through again in just this kind of strength that just could not have been possible otherwise. And that's what I really try and focus on with people, is that yes, becoming a parent is freaking scary. Yes, your life changing is freaking scary. I understand that. But there is so much cool stuff right around the corner. We've just got to move through this discomfort and surrender to what is, and also release expectations. Because once you do that, you're a lot more perceptive and open to everything that's coming afterwards. The most creative, expressive, luscious, beautiful, vulnerable, remarkable version of yourself that you would otherwise have never had access to unless you gave that a red hot go. So the grief, to me, the loss of identity, is your one-way ticket to becoming exactly who it is you needed to be all along.
Okay, let's chat about some books. I'm sure you've read so many birth, mothering, pregnancy books. So many parenting, conscious parenting books. I've read them all, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
There are a lot of things that I have read over the last few years that have just totally blown my mind and shifted the ways I see things. However, in terms of personally, books that have really helped me when things were feeling especially challenging as a mother, that's where I felt I reaped the most benefit. And so the one book that just sticks out to me is Buddhism for Mothers.
Oh, so good.
Yes. And I had the paper, the paperback, and it's huge. And I just found myself referring to it constantly because I'm, very much like my children were raised in gentle parenting techniques and attachment parenting. And it was just such a beautiful way for me to stay mindful. And then there's another book that came out recently that I was just so like really impressed with. And I want to say it's Parenting for Legends. It's just a really frank, hilarious parenting book that makes you feel less like an alien. And you're like, oh my God, there's other people who want to put their kids on a train to Romania to join the circus. Like, it was really, really, really funny. And I'll link those. Yeah, I'll link both of those for your audience. They're both great books.
Okay, I'd love to turn the spotlight a little bit more now on you.
Ooh.
What are you working on or would like to improve within yourself at the moment?
Definitely am obsessed, addicted to growth and evolution, personal growth, professional growth. And so sometimes to my detriment, I'm constantly looking for that next bit of epiphany or enlightenment. And at the moment, it's very much in the spheres of influencing and leadership. And I'm really diving into what it means to be an influencer in the online space and what responsibility that entails and what feels aligned to me and how I am going to really meld the worlds of everything I believe in and everything I want to fight for and everything I support with my big bold dreams to do the things and create the stuff and make the money and be the entrepreneur and all of that other stuff. So for me right now, I'm very much leaning into the process of what it means to be in a world that operates in digital currency and operates in likes and follows and fans, and how I'm going to use that to do good in the world and build the life of my dreams. So that's like one of the main focuses for me at the moment is just showing up authentically, doing the work that lights me up, and then also keeping my finger on the pulse of what it is to run a business and be a part of that digital landscape.
Now, let's talk about how your day looks, and in particular, your morning routine. I love hearing about how people prime themselves for the day, how they set themselves up for success. So, can you share your morning routine with us?
So the way I kick off the day is the exact reason I feel a certain way the rest of the day. So in the morning, the first thing that I have to do is make sure that my phone is nowhere near me. So I'm waking up with the sun, with the sound of the birds, my windows open, the fresh air is coming through, and the music goes on. So I hop out of bed in my underwear, put my music on the Bluetooth, and right away it's the dancing. I start off the day with the dancing. I dance to the coffee machine. I dance to my children. We all start dancing. We're laughing, and the energy is raised up several decibels. I start off the day with a bulletproof coffee. So really, really important to me, and some water, some lemon, and movement. That's really how I start off every single day. And the moment I make a compromise in any of those things, I do not feel in flow. So I've learned that lesson a few times, and that's something now that I strive to do every single day.
Okay, what are 3 things you're most recently grateful for?
Definitely the workshop last week. I am grateful for the beautiful people that I am attracting into my life, whether that is professional or personal. I am grateful for passion and the beautiful pleasures that brings into my life. I am grateful for my body and my intuition and my instinct for guiding me to do the things that are right for me. And lastly, I'm grateful to my children for loving me even when I feel totally unlovable.